have talked about security concerns. I know the mayor of Springfield, a Republican, told ABC News, "We've been punched in a way we should not have been punched." He said all these federal politicians that have negatively spun our city, they need to know they're hurting our city, and it was their words who did it. Your words, sir. Do you regret them?
Margaret, we've been hearing about these problems for months, even in some cases for years. And the problem here is not that Donald Trump and I have called out what's happened to Springfield.
No, I have talked about the problems and cited Governor DeWine saying what were legitimate problems. I'm not asking about that. We have documented that. I'm asking about your words, sir, which you are responsible for.
But, Margaret, you only documented it after Donald Trump called attention to it. And so, look, with all respect to the Springfield mayor, we've heard from many people who live in his town who are grateful, Margaret, for the fact that we are now talking about these problems and trying to solve them. We don't want anything bad to happen to Springfield, but the worst thing that's happened to Springfield in the last 20 years is that Kamala Harris allowed 20,000 migrants to be dropped on the front door with no plan to assimilate them, no plan to care for them, no plan to help the residents deal with the massive strain on social services. I understand. Look, I talk to a lot of people in Springfield. People are frustrated with the national media attention. Some people are also grateful that finally someone is paying attention to what's going on. You're never going to get this stuff perfect, Margaret, but that's why Kamala Harris shouldn't have done this in the first place. These people are suffering because she didn't do her job.
Again, the Springfield mayor is a Republican. That's who I was quoting to you. Yesterday, you posted a video, the origins of which CBS cannot confirm, claiming Africans are grilling cats in Dayton. Haiti's not Africa, Dayton's not Springfield. But putting all that aside, what is your intent in furthering the focus on these people? You're not talking about how to surge federal funds to help with safety, hospitals, and schools. You're talking about this.
Margaret, is your argument really that it's a huge difference if migrants are grilling cats 20 miles away from Springfield rather than downtown Springfield? And would it change if the video was 20 miles closer to where these things allegedly occurred? My point here is that the American media ignores these stories. Everybody who has dealt with a large influx of migration knows that sometimes there are cultural practices that seem very far out there to a lot of Americans. Are we not allowed to talk about this in the United States of America, Margaret, because the American media is more interested in fact-checking innocent people who are begging for relief than they are in investigating some of these claims? I'm going to talk about what my constituents are sending me. That video was actually filmed by a constituent. That video was filmed by a person who is worried about what's going on in these communities. I'm going to talk about it because that's what I need to do as the United States Senator for Ohio, is represent Ohio and actually make sure that people's concerns get their voice.
Again, as a representative of Ohio, these are officials from Ohio, including the Dayton police chief, who said there is no evidence of what you just claimed as being verifiable or true. CBS for weeks. What constituency are you trying to appeal to here by putting this at the center of the conversation?
Margaret, first of all, whatever a local mayor said about this case, I am hearing from dozens of constituents who are concerned about these issues. They are allowed to be concerned about these issues, and I think it's shameful how the American media ignores them. Now, you mentioned a Proud Boys march. I imagine that's the clip that I saw yesterday of about a dozen people marching down the street. Of course, I don't align myself with the views of the Proud Boys, Margaret, but we have to remember that this is a real problem. The media is using things like a dozen marchers to ignore and distract from the fact that thanks to Kamala Harris's open borders, there are children who aren't getting a good education. Thanks to her open border, there is a rise in HIV cases in Springfield, Ohio. Thanks to her open border, murders are up 81% in Springfield, Ohio. I am much more concerned about the Vice President of the United